Everyone believed she had kidnapped a billionaire's son, but the truth would leave an entire city speechless.
That night, the richest man in the city would discover that the poorest woman had protected the one treasure money could never replace.
Welcome to our world of visual where every single image captures a unique story.
Every sunrise brings a quiet choice. We can walk past the people around us, or we can become the answer to a prayer they've never spoken aloud. In every city, there are people remembered for their wealth, their success, or their power. But every once in a while, heaven chooses someone the world barely notices, and through one simple act of kindness, an ordinary life begins to change extraordinary lives. This is the story of one such person. Long before the city came alive, while most windows were still dark and the streets lay quiet, Mama Grace was already on her way to work. She wasn't famous, she wasn't wealthy. To many, she was just another street cleaner. Yet every morning, as people hurried past without noticing her, she quietly noticed them. The tired faces, the lonely hearts, the small struggles hidden behind ordinary lives. She believed that every person mattered, even if the world had forgotten to look. Before lifting her broom, before sweeping a single street, Mama Grace paused for the same quiet prayer she had whispered every morning for years. Lord, help me become somebody's miracle today.
Please help me to become somebody's miracle
smiled,
today.
Picked up her broom,
I pray that
and
I may
began
offer
another
kindness,
ordinary
grace,
day.
and support.
She never knew whose path she would cross or whose burden she might lighten. She simply believed that even the smallest act of kindness could become the brightest part of someone else's day. And without realizing it, that simple prayer was about to change more than one life. Across the city stood a mansion where every comfort money could provide was within reach. The halls were beautiful, the rooms were filled with luxury, and success echoed through every corner. But behind those elegant walls lived a family still learning how to live with loss. This was the home of Daniel Kim, a businessman admired by the world, respected for his achievements, and trusted by thousands. Yet every success came with a quiet reminder of the one person he wished he could bring back, his beloved wife. Since losing his wife, Daniel poured himself into work. The office became his refuge, and busy schedules became easier to face than an empty heart. He loved his son more than words could ever express, but grief has a way of changing people. Whenever guilt whispered that he hadn't spent enough time with Min Jun, Daniel tried to make up for it with another expensive gift.
I hope this helps with your studies.
He believed he was giving his
Thank
son
you, Dad.
everything he needed. But what Min Jun longed for couldn't be wrapped in a box. He wasn't waiting for another present, he was waiting for his father. When Daniel promised they would spend Saturday together,
No
Min
meetings,
Jun's heart lit
just
up
you
with
and
hope.
me. Really?
It wasn't
I promise.
because they were going somewhere special. It was because, for the first time in a long while, he believed he would have something far more precious than money, a whole day with his father. He counted the days with excitement, already imagining the conversations they would have and the memories they would make. Sometimes the smallest promises become the biggest dreams, especially to a child who simply wants to feel remembered. Friday evening finally arrived. As Daniel prepared to leave the office, an important meeting with international
investors have
investors
confirmed
was
tomorrow's
suddenly
meeting.
moved to Saturday.
Cancel my plans
For a
with Min
brief
Jun.
moment, he
Tell them I'll be
hesitated.
there.
He remembered the promise he had made to Min Jun, but after telling himself it was only one more meeting, he made a decision he would soon regret. Without realizing it, Daniel wasn't just changing his schedule, he was breaking the heart of the
Yes, Mr.
person
Kim.
waiting for him at home. At that very moment, Min Jun had come looking for his father. In his hands was a drawing he had spent days finishing, a simple picture of the two of them smiling together, just as they used to. As he reached the office door, he stopped. Inside, he heard Daniel asking his assistant to cancel their Saturday together because the
Cancel
meeting
tomorrow.
couldn't wait.
The meeting comes
Those
first.
few words were enough. The drawing slowly slipped to his side, and so did the smile on his face. Min Jun didn't cry. He didn't argue. He quietly turned around and walked back to his room. Sometimes the deepest pain doesn't come with tears. It comes with silence. That night, he sat alone, staring at the family photograph he had carried since his mother's passing. For the first time, he wondered if his father still saw him, or if work had become more important than the family they had left. As the rain tapped gently against his bedroom window, Minjun made a decision
Maybe
no child should
if I
ever
am gone
feel
for a
forced to
while,
make.
Dad will
He picked
finally
up a
have the
pen
time
and
that he
began
needs,
to write.
and
He
everything will be
wasn't
okay
running
for him
away
in the
because
end.
he hated his father. He was leaving because he believed he had become another burden, another interruption in a life already too busy. Sometimes the saddest goodbye begins with a heart that feels forgotten. Before leaving the house, Minjun quietly placed the letter where his father would find it. Carrying only a small backpack, his mother's photograph, a wooden
Goodbye,
bird,
Dad.
and a heart
I
full
love you
of
so
unanswered
much, and I
questions,
will carry these
he
memories
stepped
with
into
me
the rainy
wherever I
night.
go, even though it is
Hours
difficult
later,
to leave
as
this
the rain continued to fall, an elderly woman finished sweeping the streets and began her walk home. She didn't know that before the night was over, her simple prayer was about to be answered. As Mama Grace walked past a quiet bus stop, something made her slow down. Sitting alone on the bench was a young man, soaked by the rain, holding a small wooden bird as though it were the last piece of hope he had left. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where he had come from. But years of loving people had taught her something. Pain has a way of showing itself, even when no words are spoken. Mama Grace didn't begin with questions. She didn't ask why he
Good
was
evening,
there
my
or where he
son.
was going. Instead,
Is this seat
she
taken?
quietly sat beside him, allowing the silence to speak first. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can offer someone isn't advice, it's our presence. Because a
It's a
heart
little
that
warm.
feels heard
It might help
is
on a
already
rainy night.
beginning to heal.
Thank you.
You don't have to talk until you're ready. I'm not in a hurry.
I thought nobody would notice if I disappeared.
As
I'm
the
glad
rain
I
became
noticed.
lighter, so did the weight on Minjun's heart. Mama Grace shared simple stories from her childhood. Stories that made him smile. Stories that reminded him that even difficult seasons don't last forever. Without realizing it, Minjun laughed for the first time in many days. It wasn't because his problems had disappeared.
It was because, for the first time in a long while, someone had chosen to stay. Back at the mansion, Daniel expected an ordinary morning, but the moment he noticed a folded letter waiting for him, everything changed. With each line he
Minjun,
read,
where are you?
his heart sank deeper. The meetings,
police now.
the late nights, the promises he had broken, suddenly none of them mattered anymore. His son was gone,
Minjun, where
and for
are
the
you?
first
What have
time,
I done?
Daniel realized
I am
that
so
some
sorry, son.
opportunities
Let me
disappear
call the
the
police
moment
now.
we take them for granted. Sleep never came that night. Daniel wandered from room to room, each one filled with memories he had been too busy to notice. The unopened gifts, the family photographs, the empty chair at the dining table. They all reminded him that a house can be filled with beautiful things and still feel painfully empty. As the night grew quieter, only one thought remained in his heart. If he could find his
Please
son,
come home,
he
Minjun.
would
I have
never
been waiting
allow
for you
work
for
to
such a
steal
long
another
time
moment
now, and
that
the house
truly
feels
mattered.
So empty without you here with me.
By sunrise, the search had spread across the
Mr.
city.
Kim, we're checking
Police
security cameras
officers,
now. We'll find him.
security teams, and
Please, just bring my
volunteers
son home. I
searched
need to know that
every
he is safe
street,
and sound.
every station, and every place they thought Minjun might have gone. With every passing hour, Daniel's regret grew heavier. He wasn't thinking about board meetings anymore. He wasn't thinking about business. He was simply a father, praying for one more chance to hold his son and tell him the words he should have spoken long ago. While the city searched for Minjun, Mama Grace remained by his side at the quiet bus stop. She still didn't know who he was, and she had no idea people were searching for him. She only knew that the young man beside her was carrying a burden far too heavy for one heart.
After a long silence, Minjun finally found the courage to ask if someone could truly love you and still never seem to have time for you. Mama Grace smiled with the gentleness of a mother. She told him that life's deepest wounds often make people hide the love they still carry inside. Then, she reminded him of something he would never forget. Never let another person's busy life decide your worth. Your life is precious, and you are deeply loved, even on the days it doesn't feel that way. Those words didn't erase his pain, but they gave his heart something it hadn't felt in a long time: hope. As the search entered another exhausting hour, a police officer suddenly noticed something on one of the security cameras. There, on the screen, was Minjun, sitting quietly beside an elderly street cleaner at a lonely bus stop. Relief flooded Daniel's heart for only a moment. Then fear quickly took its place. He didn't know who the woman was. He didn't know why his son was with her. And when fear speaks louder than understanding, even a kind face can be mistaken for a threat. Without waiting another second, Daniel rushed out of the command center. He wasn't running toward another business deal. He was running toward the son he feared he might lose forever.
Monitor all channels.
Within minutes, police vehicles arrived at the bus stop. The flashing lights disturbed the quiet morning, but before anyone could question Mama Grace, Minjun stepped forward and gently stood beside her. Looking into his father's tear-filled eyes, he pleaded with him not to blame the woman who had shown him nothing but kindness. He explained that she hadn't taken him away. She had simply stayed with him through the darkest night of his life, listening when he needed someone to listen, comforting him when he felt forgotten, and reminding him that he still mattered. In that moment, the truth became impossible to ignore. The woman everyone had been ready to judge was the very person who had protected Daniel's greatest treasure. Daniel stood speechless. The fear, the regret, and the guilt he had carried all night finally gave way to gratitude. With tears in his eyes, he thanked Mama Grace for giving his son the time he himself had forgotten to give. Mama Grace simply smiled. She told him that he didn't owe her anything. If he truly wanted to thank her, he should go home, hold his son close, and never let him grow up feeling alone while his father was still alive. Those gentle words reached a place in Daniel's heart that success, wealth, and achievement never could. Sometimes the greatest lessons come from the people the world overlooks. A few weeks later, Saturdays looked very different. The meetings could wait. The business could wait. Daniel had discovered that the moments we give to the people we love are the moments that truly shape a life. Together with Minjun and Mama Grace, he spent his weekends serving meals, sharing laughter, and bringing hope to others. The little wooden bird that once reminded Minjun of his loneliness had become a reminder that one act of kindness can change a family's future. As Mama Grace quietly watched the father and son laugh together, she lifted her eyes to heaven and whispered the same prayer that had guided her life for so many years. Thank you, Lord, for letting me become somebody's miracle today. Because in the end, the greatest wealth is never measured by what we own, but by the love, the time, and the kindness we leave behind.
Sometimes the greatest miracles don't happen through extraordinary people. They happen through ordinary hearts, willing to stop, listen, and love. Thank you for watching and supporting our journey together.